you can consider this video the only video you'll need to get into men's jewelry. I'm going to be going over the key pieces I recommend, what materials, most importantly, how to style them. So no matter what you decide to pick up, you could really elevate any outfit. Starting off with the material, you don't have to be an absolute baller. You don't have to try to look like a rapper and ice out everything. In fact, I'd say the opposite looks better. It really depends on your personal style, but since I like a more minimal and laid back look, my jewelry is going to follow exactly that. Whether you decide to go with gold or with silver, however, if you're just getting into men's jewelry, silver is a great place to start. I actually recommend 925 silver, also known as sterling silver. This is actually considered the gold standard, or I guess the silver standard for silver. When buying silver jewelry, you really want to look out for that 925 stamp. This is essentially the best grade you can get. It's more durable and it's generally considered more suitable for all skin types. Most people say that sterling silver or 925 silver, this is not going to irritate your skin. Just for this video, all the pieces we're going to be talking about is 925 silver, as well as them all being from Lupin, which is the sponsor of today's video, but we'll talk about them more later. So going over the pieces that I recommend, just for the sake of this video, we're going to pretend that you've never had a piece of jewelry before. The number one place that I recommend starting with is with a chain. I feel like this is everybody's gateway into really getting into jewelry, me included. I started off with a nice chain, and I really do think that this is a simple piece that will make any outfit look better. So there's two options you can go with, a solid chain or a pendant. This is really subjective. It really depends on what you prefer, and I really base these on personality and what the vibe of the outfit is. This is just my preference, but I like my pendant showing on more casual outfits. If I want the outfit to be a little bit more dressed up, I'll keep it tucked underneath. That way it's just peeking through the outfit. I consider this to be a little subtle touch of class. Again, that's just my preference, and tons of guys out there might not even agree with that. But pretty much what I'm trying to get at is the fact that there is no wrong answer, and that also goes with which type of chain that you want to get. And there are so many of them out there. There's Cuban link, rope chain, Figaro chain, and huge shout out to Lupin for having a ton of different unique styles, or the one that I have is called their snake chain. So if you're wondering how do you decide which chain that you want to go with, the way I like to think about this is looking at how you already dress. If you're like me and like those simple outfits, I go with thinner chains, and if you can't tell by now, I do like the chains that are smaller. I don't like them too long. I feel like the thinner and shorter ones really tie in my entire aesthetic together. But if you have a more bold sense of style, maybe you like some more statement pieces, then find some jewelry that will help you do that as well. So again, since I consider my entire aesthetic to be a little bit more clean cut, I like to follow the aesthetic with my jewelry as well. So I picked up that snake chain as well as my Ascend pendant necklace. You could decide on getting one, but I really like having both and stacking them. This is a great way to pretend like you know what you're doing when it comes to men's fashion, but all you're doing is stacking two chains. I like to have the pendant longer than the solid chain. This is going to give you more depth to your outfit, and I feel like it brings more attention to what I have around my neck. Now, one huge piece of advice is if you're going to be going with a thinner chain, you really have to make sure that it's high quality, which is exactly why I recommend the pieces from Lupin. Everything from Lupin is clean and elegant designs that go with literally anything that I'm wearing. These are all handcrafted in Korea, and let me tell you right now, especially in person, these are all an absolute piece of art. If there's one thing that I can appreciate, it's good craftsmanship, and every piece that I own, and I'm going to be talking about in today's video, really shows the attention to detail. These are all handmade in Seoul, Korea by third generation jewelers, so if I may say, they definitely know what they're doing. Again, just because I love simplicity, I really like Lupin because they really show that less is more, and that really shows in their designs and quality. So all the pieces that I'm talking about in today's video are going to be linked in the description, as well as a coupon code for you to get 15% off your order. Moving on from chains, the next piece that I recommend is a good bracelet. This is honestly what I consider to be the next big touch in any outfit. In fact, I would even say that an outfit is incomplete if your wrists are naked. And there are so many cool ones to choose from, and depending on your style, you could have a nice subtle piece of luxury on your wrist, or you can go with something that's a little bit more of a statement. A good example of a statement piece is this one from Lupin. However, if you're like me, you want something a little bit more clean and subtle. The one that I got is this Spica chain bracelet in 4.4 millimeters, which just look at it. It's just an absolute beauty. And one important thing to keep in mind when you're picking out a good bracelet is making sure you know the size of your wrist. I, for example, have very skinny wrists, so I try to go something on the smaller side. Otherwise, it's just going to swallow up my entire forearm. That doesn't really look good in my opinion. And I wouldn't consider this to be snug by any means, but it's definitely not going to drop down to my elbow. I like to wear my bracelets on my dominant hand. That's because on my non-dominant hand, I typically wear a watch, which I've seen some people stack their watch with a bracelet. This could look really cool as well. I've never really done this. If you are going to be doing it, then I would say your bracelet should be a lot more snug. But since it's on the opposite wrist, again, I just like to have this one by itself. You could also stack bracelets with other bracelets. That looks really cool as well. But for me, I consider that to be a little bit more of a statement piece. piece. And if that's your vibe, then that is something that I recommend doing. But it is important to experiment to see what you like. Just don't be one of those guys who's always boring and stick to the same thing. Especially when it comes to men's jewelry, having just a few pieces makes it really easy to always keep things fresh, switch things up, so that way you're ready for any occasion. If you're dressing more casual, you could have statement pieces, but if you're going to an event where you want to look more put together, then again, those subtle touches of luxury, jewelry can really help you do that. Okay, moving on to rings. This is something that I'm slowly getting into more and more, and most guys tend to overlook this. So again, don't be like most guys. If you really want to stand out, a super easy way to do that is with a few rings. In fact, there are different types of rings out there that are more statement pieces, definitely more bold. You could definitely experiment with that as well. But since I've been wearing jewelry for such a long time now, I kind of know exactly what I already like. So when I was deciding on what pieces I should grab from Lupin, there's really two that really stuck out to me. One of them being the Troublemaker ring, and the other one being the Korean trigram ring, which in my opinion, they're just both stunning pieces. There's been some days where I wore both of them, but for my personal style, I think one is perfect. I got both of them in the same size, so they really only fit my index ring, which brings me on to my next point of sizing. You obviously don't want this to be very tight. It's gonna cut off blood flow, and your finger's probably gonna look like a sausage. But of course, you don't want this to be too loose as well. Nobody talks about this, but my favorite test is putting your ring on and pointing directly down. If it falls off, it's too big, but if it comfortably sits, then you got the right size. You could also put these on different fingers. That is a great way to style them. And my favorite thing about rings, you're not necessarily dressing these up. They look good on both casual and formal outfits, but by no means is this making you look more formal. In fact, I would say having a ring on, even with a formal outfit, just really makes you look like you know how to dress. So again, I keep this on either my index ring, sometimes my middle finger. Some guys like to have a ring on their pinky finger. To me, you look like an absolute mob boss, which does look cool at times, but it's just not my style. Now, in my opinion, the chain, the bracelet, the ring, these are all the absolute essentials. If you really want to take it a step further, then try new things out, or you can try getting multiple of each. So again, either stack them or always just keep things fresh. Again, huge thank you to Lupin for sponsoring today's video. Everything is going to be linked in the description. Let me know what you end up deciding to try. And other than that, I'll see you in the next video.